You're not addicted to the substance. You're addicted to the feeling of being whole, and you've forgotten what that feels like. Sounds crazy, right? But think about it. Most people don't crave a drink, a pill, a scroll through Instagram. They crave a moment of peace, a feeling of this is enough. That's not weakness. That's a spiritual hunger dressed up as bad habits. Carl Jung, the mind-bending psychologist with the beard of a wizard and the soul of a monk, believed addiction isn't just about chemicals. It's about meaning. In ancient times, people used substances to connect with the divine, not to escape life, but to dive deeper into it. Today, we binge Netflix and Red Bull hoping to fill that same ancient void. Here's the truth. You're not broken. You're disconnected from purpose, from ritual, from whatever gives your life fire. The fix isn't more willpower. It's reconnecting with that part of you that's starving for something real. You don't need to be stronger. You need to remember who you are. If addiction was just about willpower, then smart, disciplined people would never get hooked. And yet here we are. Lawyers, doctors, parents, artists, people who've run marathons and paid taxes on time still find themselves trapped in cycles they hate. So what gives? Society loves to point fingers. Just stop, they say, as if the addict hasn't tried that already. But Carl Jung saw something deeper. He didn't see an addict as weak. He saw someone in pain, spiritual pain, not need to go to church pain, but I don't know who I am anymore kind of pain. He believed addiction wasn't a failure of will, it was a soul crisis. You're not chasing a substance, you're chasing wholeness. And the bottle or the binge or the buzz is just a shortcut that keeps backfiring. Modern science backs this up. Brain scans show that addiction lights up the same parts of the brain tied to love, purpose, and safety. In other words, your brain isn't just craving dopamine, it's screaming, "Give me something that matters." Here's the kicker. You can't shame someone out of addiction. That's like yelling at a starving person for eating garbage. The problem isn't the food, it's the hunger. And until we treat the hunger, the cycle won't break. So if you're stuck in a loop, ask yourself, what am I really starving for? Connection? Peace? A reason to get out of bed that isn't just survival? Start there. Because when you understand that this isn't about being weak, it's about being disconnected, you start the real healing. You don't need more control. You need more meaning. And maybe fewer people shouting, "Just quit," and more people asking, "What's hurting underneath?" Addiction didn't start in a nightclub or a shady alley. It started in temples. Yeah, seriously. Thousands of years ago, substances like mushrooms, wine, and even smoke were used in sacred ceremonies to connect with the divine, not to escape life, but to understand it better. These weren't weekend benders. They were guided rituals. Shamans didn't say, "Take two and party hard." They said, "Take this and meet the gods." But fast forward to today, and that sacred ritual has been turned into a solo habit with bad lighting and a dead phone battery. We've kept the substance, but lost the meaning. Ancient people used these tools with reverence. Today, we use them like digital band-aids, scrolling, drinking, snacking, swiping, just trying to feel something. Modern addiction is like a hijacked ritual. It wants to be meaningful, but it's been stripped of its soul. And here's the crazy part. Your brain still treats it like a ritual. Your habit loop is your mind's desperate attempt to reach something higher, even if it ends in guilt and regret instead of insight. Carl Jung would say this is your unconscious screaming, "Give me something real." We don't need more substances. We need more sacredness, more connection, more purpose. You don't need to trip in a jungle to reconnect. You just need to ask, what is my soul trying to say through this craving? Maybe addiction isn't the end. Maybe it's a broken prayer waiting to be heard. No one wakes up thinking, "You know what sounds fun? Destroying my life." The addict isn't chasing a high. They're running from a hole inside themselves. A kind of emptiness that doesn't show up on x-rays, but eats at you like a silent echo. And the scariest part? Most people don't even know what's missing. They just know something hurts. Carl Jung said that addiction is a symbolic substitute. You're not really craving alcohol or sugar or your fifth rerun of a show you don't even like. You're craving connection. You're longing for wholeness, for love, for the feeling that you're not invisible in a world that never stops scrolling. And when that pain gets loud, we don't always respond with poetry and journaling. We respond with a drink, a pill, a swipe, anything to make the ache shut up for just a moment. But here's the trap, that relief, it's fake peace. It's like drinking salt water when you're thirsty. You feel better for 5 minutes, until it hits you harder. That void doesn't go away. It grows. It learns your patterns. It waits for the silence to creep back in. Then it whispers, "Feed me." That's why willpower alone isn't enough. You're not fighting a craving. You're fighting a symbolic wound. And until that wound is understood, it will keep asking to be filled with things that only leave you more drained. Jung believed this wasn't madness. It was the soul trying to self-heal. Think about that. Your worst habits might actually be misfired attempts at finding meaning. That should give you hope, because it means the problem isn't that you're broken. It's that you're searching in the wrong direction. Want to break the cycle? Start by asking what the emptiness is really about. Is it loneliness? Shame? Fear of being forgotten? Once you face it, it stops being a monster and starts becoming a message. One that says, you're not weak. You're waking up. You're not just battling a habit. You're battling yourself. And that's the part no one talks about. Behind every addiction is a civil war happening in secret. One part of you wants to heal. The other part wants to hide. And that hidden part, Carl Jung called it the shadow. The shadow isn't some evil force lurking in a haunted house. It's the stuff you've buried, the memories you've shoved down, the pain you never talked about, the anger you weren't allowed to feel. It's all still there, just wearing a different costume. Addiction often becomes that mask. It's not about liking the substance. It's about silencing the scream. Here's where it gets wild. The shadow isn't bad. It's just unheard. It's like an inner child locked in the basement, throwing furniture until someone finally listens. Jung believed that if we don't make peace with this part of ourselves, it takes over. Quietly, from the inside, you start sabotaging your own success, ghosting people who love you, chasing chaos because peace feels unfamiliar. Modern psychology backs him up. Trauma, shame, and repressed emotions don't just disappear. They go underground and leak out sideways. In your scrolling, in your rage, in your third drink when you swore you'd only have one. But here's the empowering part. What you fear inside you is also where your power lives. Jung said, the gold is in the shadow. That means the part of you you've been avoiding, it holds your untapped strength, your real voice, your creativity, even your healing. Facing the shadow isn't about fixing yourself. It's about meeting yourself, all of yourself. Because the addict isn't just a person with a problem. They're a person with a story. And that story deserves to be heard, not hidden. You're not broken, you're fragmented. And integration, not shame, is the way back home. Quitting isn't the finish line. Sometimes, it's just the beginning of a new kind of suffering. That's the part people don't warn you about. You can cut out the drinking, the pills, the scrolling, and still feel empty. Still wake up wondering, why do I still feel like something's missing? Because here's the truth. Sobriety isn't freedom if the pain is still screaming inside. Carl Jung nailed this decades ago. He said that if the unconscious isn't brought into the light, it runs your life, and you call it fate. In other words, if you don't face the real reason you were numbing out, you'll just find a new drug. Might not come in a bottle. It might be work, relationships, validation, even wellness. But the pattern repeats. Think of it like this. You've been patching a leak in your roof with duct tape. Sobriety is like finally pulling the tape off and realizing the whole ceiling's rotted. Scary? Yeah, but now you can actually fix it. Modern psychology backs Jung's idea. Studies show that trauma, when left unresolved, doesn't disappear, it redirects. That's why people go from one bad habit to another. It's not random. It's your inner system trying to balance itself with the emotional intelligence of a toddler with the sugar rush. And don't get it twisted. Quitting takes strength. It's a big deal. But if you stop there, you're just cleaning up the symptom, not the wound. Healing means asking the hard stuff. What was I trying to escape? Whose voice was I trying to silence? You don't heal by quitting alone. You heal by listening to the part of you that needed the escape in the first place. That's the real freedom. When you don't just say no to the substance, but say yes to yourself. You're not just craving escape. You're craving elevation. And that changes everything. Carl Jung believed humans don't just want comfort. We want meaning. We need myths, symbols, and a sense of something greater to survive. Kind of like spiritual Wi-Fi. Without it, we glitch. When that deeper connection goes missing, people don't stop searching. They just start looking in weird places. That's how addiction becomes a misguided spiritual quest. It's not just a habit. It's a distorted attempt to touch something sacred. To feel alive, whole, connected to something. You're not crazy for wanting that. You're human. Ancient cultures knew this. They used rituals, stories, even psychoactive plants to explore the unknown, not to party, but to connect with the divine. But today, we've replaced the sacred with the synthetic. No rituals, no symbols, just DoorDash and doom scrolling. So what happens? The longing doesn't go away. It just mutates. We chase dopamine hits instead of soul moments. The bottle becomes the altar. The high becomes the fake heaven. But the feeling never lasts, because it was never the real thing. Jung saw addiction not as sin, but as a soul detour. A sacred hunger that's lost its map. And here's the twist. That craving in you? It's not wrong. It's holy. You're trying to return to something meaningful. You've just taken a wrong turn on the highway to wholeness. To heal, you don't need to erase the longing. You need to redirect it. Toward art, toward purpose, toward connection, toward something bigger than just getting by. Addiction isn't the end. It's a spiritual SOS. And once you learn to read it, you can finally answer with something real. Something that doesn't disappear when the high fades. You don't fix a broken soul with advice. You fix it with meaning. Carl Jung believed that healing doesn't come from lectures, punishments, or someone yelling. Just stop already. Real change happens when your soul finds a new center, when something clicks so deeply inside you. It rewrites the story you've been living by. And no, that something isn't a self-help book or a trendy podcast. It's a symbolic transformation, something that feels sacred, personal, powerful. It's the moment you stop seeing yourself as broken and start seeing yourself as someone becoming whole. This is exactly why Alcoholics Anonymous was built the way it was. Its founder, Bill Wilson, actually wrote to Jung and said, "Hey, what really works?" Jung's reply, a spiritual experience, something bigger than ego, bigger than shame. That's why AA isn't just about not drinking. It's about finding a new way to live. See, symbols matter. Always have. Ancient myths, religious rituals, even tattoos. They help us make sense of chaos. They're the emotional glue that holds your identity together. And when life falls apart, you don't need more discipline. You need a new story. Think about how powerful that is. The same energy that drove your addiction can now drive your rebirth. That obsession, it's fuel. All you need is a new engine. Something that gives your life depth, art, nature, faith, service, a mission, even a single moment that makes you feel seen again. The turning point isn't when you clean up. It's when something sacred replaces the craving. When the high you chased gets swapped for meaning that sticks around long after the moment ends. That's not just recovery. That's resurrection. And you don't need to be perfect to start. You just need to be willing to believe there's something deeper calling you forward. You are not a failure. You are the main character in a story that just got real. Addiction isn't proof that you're broken. It's proof that you've been in a battle most people don't even know exists. And guess what? The fact that you're still here means you haven't lost. Carl Jung believed that addicts aren't lost causes. They're heroes in disguise. Not the Instagram kind. The ancient myth kind. The kind who falls into the underworld, faces monsters, and comes back stronger with wisdom to share. The kind of story that's messy, painful, and real as hell. See, shame tells you that your past defines you. But pain can be a teacher. It doesn't whisper sweet affirmations. It grabs you by the collar and screams, "Look at yourself." And when you finally stop running, when you actually listen, It teaches you things you couldn't learn any other way. Things like compassion, depth, strength that doesn't come from lifting weights, but from lifting yourself off the floor again and again. Modern psychology calls this post-traumatic growth. Ancient myth calls it rebirth. You fall, you break, and you rebuild, not into your old self, but into someone new. Someone who's seen the darkness and now knows how to carry the light. True healing isn't about avoiding the shadow. It's about walking straight into it and realizing it doesn't destroy you. It reveals you. That's the turning point. When your story shifts from tragedy to transformation. When you stop saying, "Why me?" and start saying, "What is this trying to teach me?" You don't need to erase the past to be redeemed. You need to rewrite its meaning. Because maybe the ugliest chapter of your life is also the one that holds the key to your greatness. And if that's not heroic, I don't know what is. What if the thing that's been destroying you was never the enemy? What if it was a messenger? Try to tell you something your soul was too tired to say out loud. That craving you keep fighting, it's not random. It's a signal. A call for something deeper, something real. Carl Jung said, "What hurts you can also heal you if you listen." And that's the key, listening. Not just to your cravings, but to what they're covering up. You weren't just looking for a high. You were looking for home, for peace, for wholeness. The substance was never the real issue. It was the shortcut your mind took when it didn't know how else to cope. But here's the wild part. Once you start to uncover what you really need, meaning, connection, forgiveness, purpose, the craving starts to lose its grip. You don't have to fight it so hard. You just have to translate it. Think of addiction as your soul speaking in code. And once you crack that code, you're not trapped, you're free. Modern science agrees. Healing happens when people find purpose, community, and self-understanding, not just sobriety. We're not robots who can be reprogrammed with willpower. We're messy, beautiful humans who heal through meaning. So if you're in the middle of it, still hurting, still lost, don't give up. You're not weak. You're on the edge of awakening. The cycle ends when you stop asking, "How do I stop?" and start asking, "What am I really longing for?" And when you listen to that longing, not with judgment, but with honesty, that's where healing begins. Addiction isn't just a flaw. It's a cracked compass pointing you back to yourself. Follow it, not to the substance, but to the symbol buried underneath. Because once you find that, you don't just survive, you transform.